Subscribe, please.
Hey guys, welcome back. It's your favorite Gimp with a Limp, and I am here with something very exciting for you today. This is the preview prototype copy of For What Remains Skirmish Tactical Apocalypse. This is created by David Thompson, and he's the guy that has done Pavlov's House, Castle Eider, War Chest. You know, he's got a bunch of games under his belt, and obviously it's by DVG. This will be coming to Kickstarter here in just a few weeks. So I am definitely looking forward to that Kickstarter now that I've got my hands on it, got to try it a little bit. Best way I can think to describe this is it's kind of like Fallout Wasteland Warfare had a baby with a traditional tactical war game, and this is what came of it. It's like the two genres kind of mixed in. You have the grid. This is square based instead of hex based that you would encounter with a traditional type war game, but you have modular tiles, which we see all here. There's 12 that come with the base game. 9 are generally what's set out. You have terrain, different elevations, all the type stuff that you would expect to find in a tactical miniatures based war game, but it is all flat. It's all done with counters. It's statistics. So it really is that that feel like a miniatures tactical game where you're rolling dice and using rulers or range rulers and things like that mixed together with a war game. And this is what came out. To touch on the fluff real quick, because a lot of people have asked about that. I've definitely enjoyed reading about it. There's a lot of information in the rule book, but to give you the short version of the story, basically the governments of the world, when they were experimenting first with nuclear weapons, they detonated some underground and accidentally opened a portal to hell, and strange creatures started coming through, and they started investigating it, and then other governments started doing the same thing, and they called it the basement, which is where all the weird stuff was going on. North Korea ends up making friends and allies with the bad guys, of course, and some coalitions got together and scientists got together and started making experiments with humans and some of the, weird alien stuff and crossbreeding and genetic experimentation, creating a new race of rock people. And then they were fighting, and then the governments ended up falling. It turns into like this major world war where they're firing nukes and enemy necromancers are coming out and strange beasts, and the world's kind of waylaid at this point, and there's just a few warring factions left. And to touch on those very quickly on what factions they are, let me show you guys real quick. Now, there's only 2 that are included with the base game. My guess is the rest will be stretch goals or add-ons. The 2 that come with the base game are the Freeman Coalition, which you can think of as civilian people who've got their hands on some weaponry and are fighting back. The Combine, which is what's the leftover of the military. The Echo, which is like weird psychic people. The Earthen, which are the genetic modified rock people. The Order of New Dawn, which is a weird group of like religious cult type people. And then the Soldier of Light, which is another like religious group, with the exception that they hate technology. So a bunch of different factions. I think the Order of New Dawn are bad guys. I think they're, are creatures from the subterranean realm known as the basement. So yeah, they're like the evil creatures, not a cult. I was wrong on that one. So a whole bunch of weird and interesting, strange stuff. And I definitely want to try out some of the other factions now that I've been reading up on some of these guys. So that's the gist of the story. But you do have a lot of stuff that comes with the game. You guys can see I've already got some tokens laid out. I've got a little starter scenario set here. Nothing major. They're just 2 sides trying to kill each other. The Combine over here and the what do they call the rebels, the civilian guys on the far side. They're going to be the AI controlled. And I'll show you guys how that's going to work here in a sec. Your units are going to be these counters, and you either have a small counter, let me pick it up, representing a small like individual square sized troop, or you have huge troops like this big mech inferno here. Now, when you look in the bottom right, this is an interesting system that he came up with. This tells you whether it's recruit, veteran, or elite, which doesn't just determine its stats, it determines its health. Because you can see this one, the Vanguard, is a veteran. All right, now recruit's the lowest, but to signify that it's a veteran, you actually take 2 of the counters and you stack them on top of each other. So when this unit takes damage, you'll take and flip it over to its wounded side. Okay, well, there's the stripe, it's wounded. And then when it takes another hit, it goes from being a veteran down to a recruit. And then the recruit can take a hit, and then once he's reduced, he's taken out. So not only do you have improved stats when you level up or you're a higher level character, but you have more health as well. So you've got like 2 health for recruit, 4 health for veteran, and 6 health for elite. Really interesting system that they have with stacking the counters like that. I think that's a really neat idea. These are the player cards for the different types of units. This is a commander unit, and you can see across the top here, recruit, veteran, elite. These numbers refer to their cost when purchasing, and it's similar to 40K or Fallout Wasteland Warfare, where certain troops will have a certain point cost, so you'll buy that many troops to fill out your squad. This that I have set up here is a 10-point match on each side. So my commander is only recruit. The only veteran that I actually have is my Vanguard. So when you have a recruit, you'll take a look on this left side, and that's going to determine not only their stats, but any special skills that they have. And then the type of unit that they are, human, mechanical for this guy. The rest of the combines are mechanical. MOV obviously is move 4, so that's how many squares he can move during a turn. WR is weapon range, that's how many squares out he can shoot. CC is close combat, that's going to be how many dice you'll roll in a close combat attack. RC is ranged combat, and that's how many dice you'll roll when attacking at range with whatever weapon. And then defense down here is your defensive number. So when someone makes an attack against this unit, when they roll their dice, they're looking for this number or higher to take and inflict a wound. So obviously elite, his defense would be 6. It'd be much harder to wound him than it would at defense 4. But 5 points versus 1 point. You could get, 5 of these guys for the cost of 1 of these. Real interesting system they got set up. I wanted to take and do a basic match. That's why I just went with the starter 10 points. Nothing real fancy, no special circumstances or objectives in the game. It's literally just one side trying to kill the other side. Show you a couple of the other troops that they have. Vanguard is like a mechanical cyborg. This one is my veteran. So he is my 3-point unit. You can see his stats are a little bit better. He's got a 7 on his range, 2 on his close combat, 3 on his range combat, which is actually really good. Defense is 6, and he has weapon sensors. I'll show the skills when we get into it. There is a sheet that lists down the what all these skills mean. The Inferno, the big counter that I just showed you guys, is also a recruit, but you guys can see this one's expensive. This one's 3 points just for the recruit. It has the huge stat, obviously, because it has, it's a 4 square counter and flamethrower. Now, my prototype copy does not have the templates for the grenades or the flamethrower, so I'm just going to have to kind of explain that to you. Actually, let me grab. Okay. There's a little book for each one of the little factions that gives a blurb about the different units and their abilities. You can see for the flamethrower, this is what it'll do when it performs a ranged attack. So the unit will be right here, and then out in front of it, this would be your flame template. And there are special rules for it on what it's going to hit. We'll get into that later. But understand, I'm just going to be counting this out for our playthrough here where I'm showing you guys how the game works. But when you actually play the game itself, you'll have a template that you'll actually set down in front of the counter itself, showing, hey, the flames are hitting here. This is what's going on. So there's not only that, there's one for the grenade launcher as well, but the grenade launcher is pretty easy to understand because it's just a nine square template. I also have my other big unit, also a cost of 3. It's another recruit of the Hellfire. It is huge, but unfortunately I did not get the dual strike, which means this thing only gets to fire once. But its range combat is 4, so it's pretty tough. But you can see at Veteran, it costs a lot more points because that dual strike is real powerful. It gets to shoot twice at different units. Weapon range of 9 just at Recruit, 11 at Elite. So you can see the points add up very quickly for some of these larger units. And a defense of 6, so it's very, 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 very defensive. Looking forward to try this out. Move is only 3, so it's very slow. Slow, ponderous, big mech type tank thingy. And just to show you guys very quickly what's on the other side, we have the Grenadier. That one is also, I think they only have one that is a veteran as well. Which one is it? Yep, it is the Sniper. Is that one? Nope, the Medic is a veteran too. Okay, so the Grenadier is just going to be a recruit. This is the other guy that has a special ability. His is the rocket launcher, and like I said, it'll hit in a 9 square hex. And then they have a Medic, which has a med kit. Not very combat effective. You can see only 1 on each of its range combat and close combat, but she's there to take and heal them up from their damage. And they also have a Sniper. Their Sniper is going to be a veteran, shoots at a long range, has a good attack, has the stealth ability, which we'll get into here in a bit. And then the Rebel Leader, which is going to be a recruit. That was just a 1-point kind of filler there, and has Inspire move, which if it's similar to the Commander on mine, it should take and give the other units the ability to take and act beyond their turn. Let's set these out of the way. Now, I know you're wondering, okay, well, you've shown us all this. How do they activate? Well, each one of the units is going to have one of these little small round counters, and they're going to have 3 of these per one. Okay, so my Inferno, I got 1 of these. There's going to be 3 of these activation counters for this guy. Now, let's say I was playing a human opponent and not doing AI. I'll explain that first, and then we'll get into how Solitaire is going to work. For each one of your forces on the board, you're going to have 3 tokens, but you'll keep them face down to where your opponent can't see them. And for how many units you have on the board, I have 4 currently on the map. I would get to draw 4 tokens that I could take and put into the bag. Well, bag, this one's mine, prototype copy, didn't have one. But you would take 4 that you choose, they're not random, and put them in the bag. And they could be 3 of one unit, or it can be 1 of each. It's any combination you want up to the amount of characters that you have on the board. So I would have 4 tokens in the bag. If it was a human opponent on the other side, they also have 4 characters on the board. They would put 4 tokens in the bag, any 4 tokens that they chose. Putting them face down and secretly selecting means he's not going to know, and I'm not going to know what units are going to activate this round. I might choose to activate my big flamethrower 3 times and only one of the other guys, or I might spread it around to everyone. You never know. So it's a real neat system. I like that idea that your opponent isn't going to know what you're activating, and you have the option to activate some units more than once if you wish to, unlike some games that have the I go, you go system, and every unit's going to activate this round. You know that for a fact, so you can prepare for it. Well, now you don't know that every unit's going to activate, and your opponent doesn't know which ones are yours that you're going to activate. Now, I know you're wondering, okay, well, how's that going to work in a solitaire play system? Are you pretty much just playing both sides to the best of your ability? No. And this is the way I'm kind of handling it. They say to shuffle them up and keep them face down. I went ahead and took, don't drop them. I went ahead and took all the tokens. So I have 12 tokens, 3 for each of their 4 characters. And I went ahead and put them in my bowl, and I'm going to randomly draw these out. And that's going to determine which ones of the enemies activate. Now, depending on how hard of a solitaire game you want to play, is going to determine how many you draw out. For an easy game, it's the amount of characters they have plus 1. Medium game, their characters plus 2. And hard game, obviously, their characters plus 3. So I'm going to be doing easy to start with. I'll draw 5 counters for them versus my 4 counters. So the AI gets to activate one more time than I do in an easy game to kind of help balance the fact that it is an AI playing. Also, just like we have our character sheets with our stats, there are sheets that show the AI orders for all the different units. You can see it's Combine on one side and the Rebels on the other side. So this is going to show what they're going to do. If they are engaged, which means they're, in close in with the enemy, they'll take and do these orders. You'll roll on the D10 to determine what orders are going to be done. If they're injured, so if they've taken a wound, well, then you'll roll to determine if they do a move to the closest medic. And if you didn't roll the 1 to 5, for example, for injured, then you would roll again on the orders table and they would do one of these orders. So this is their little order chart for how the enemy AI is going to behave. You're going to use that with Freeman Coalition. I keep forgetting the term Freeman. This is the little AI sheet. It's the activation reference, and it's going to help you determine what they're going to do when you're doing whatever with them. So I like the fact that this is included. You can see if they're engaged, CC weakest enemy, withdraw a move, blah, blah, blah. It'll give you an idea of what they'll do under certain circumstances. All right, a couple other things before we get started here. The D10s that I'm using, these are mine. There were not a set of D10s included with the prototype copy, so I don't know what the dice are going to look like that are included with the actual game itself. So don't anticipate green ones or whatever color that I happen to be using. These just happen to be mine. One other thing that I need to tell you about, there are scavenge tokens spread across the board. I just randomly threw some down onto the map. And these tokens are basically extra points is the way to look at it. Some scenarios might have you going for specific ones. I haven't read through all the scenarios yet, so I don't know if there are extra circumstances for the scavenge tokens. But you can have your units take and move into a square where, and I'm going to call these squares hexes, where a scavenge token is. And for a cost of 1 movement point, they can pick up that scavenge token. For our purposes, these scavenge tokens are just going to be 1 extra victory point for the course of the match. One more thing here before we get started. I know you're wondering about the counters themselves. Like, okay, well, how do I work it if I have more than one of the same unit? If you look down here in the bottom left, there are 2 different symbols. There's one that looks like a radioactive symbol, and then there's one that has a little skull on it here. This allows you to signify 2 different units when you're playing the game. So I could have a couple of different Inferno units, and I would understand, okay, one's skull and one's the radioactive looking one. It just signifies the 2 different ones, kind of like little markers you'll put on the bottom of the pegs on X-Wing. And you would just take and have 3 of the counters for each one to be drawn. And you can see on our little counters, they actually have those symbols as well for the activation. So it's a real easy system to help you understand who is who. Okay, we're going to start real quick. And like I said, I'm going to play through this quick scenario, just a 10-point scenario to show you guys some of the game and how it's going to work. To start off with, I'm going to take 1 token for each one of my guys. That's how I figured I'd start it. And I'm going to put it into my little draw bag. Again, I don't know what the draw bag is going to look like for the actual game itself. This is just the one my dice came in, but it works for me. And then I'm going to take and randomly draw these. So I'm looking away and I'm going to draw out 5 of these counters. Let's see, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. That was 5, right? Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to take these 5 counters. I'm going to add them to the bag as well. Shake it up. And that's going to determine the order in which we go. You guys can see now how it works with the activations. and pretty much basic type stuff. Move, the orders that you can do. You can move, you can shoot, you can close combat, you can pick up scavenge tokens, that type of stuff. Nothing really horribly fancy or out of the ordinary, but neat system nonetheless. All right, let's see. Our first token. Oh, yay, I get to start this off. It's going to be my Inferno. So when I draw out this counter, okay, for the human player, the AI operates a little differently. For the human player, this gets set in my discard, okay? I'll set it off to the side, and after I've done this round, we've completed this round, I will select another set of counters to go in, but it can't come from my discard. But once I've selected my new counters, then the discard go back into my regular hand of counters, okay? So what that means is, say I use all 3 counters for my Inferno this round. Well, the next round, they're going to be discarded for 1 round before they can come back in, okay? So every time you use a counter as a human player, there's 1 round in between before it's available to be used again. So if you have one that you've burned through and you're focusing 1 unit, you can't just take and repeatedly use your strongest unit over and over and over again. There is a pause in between that. Now there is a extra counter that comes into it, the eliminated units counter. We're not going to talk about that just yet. We'll get into that later when we actually have some units get eliminated, but it changes up the activation. Looking at my Inferno, we can see it has a movement of 4. So I'm going to take and move it up 4 squares. There's really not a whole lot going on the board just yet, so might as well move them up. Oh, something I did forget to mention. You're seeing the yellow in the orange around the board. Yellow means it's elevated, and orange means it's difficult terrain. If there is a circle with a slash through it, that means that it's blocking terrain, like this tower over here. You can't see through it. You can see through difficult terrain, but it's going to increase the opponent's defense by 1. And raised terrain, you can't see through it. You can't shoot through it, but if you're on top of it, you can take and shoot down on people or onto others who are also onto raised terrain. But for example, like this Inferno, this huge unit, it can't be half on, half off. It can get onto raised terrain, but to do so, it has to fully be standing onto the raised terrain. You can't have some of it on, some of it off, no matter how you're doing it. Like it could stand on this bus, but it can't stand on this car. Okay, so got a movement of 4. I know my enemies are going to come from there. This Inferno's got to shoot at a closer range. So he's going to get 1. Oh, and when you do have a large unit like this, you're going to pick one of the squares and you're going to count that as where you're counting from. Doesn't matter what square you pick as long as you stay consistent. So I'll just pick this top left one. 1, 2, 3, 4. So it'll move up to there. And just like that, first activation's done. Not hard. We'll take it and draw another one. All right, let's see what we got here. One of theirs, it is their medic. And when it comes to the Solitaire AI, I'm going to go ahead and place this directly back into the bowl to be drawn the next turn. So they never have a discard with their activation counters. Their activation counters will completely be available turn after turn. So it's another advantage the AI gets over the human player to kind of help balance things out. Now their medic is way over here, and you can see there are 2 counters. So it represents the fact that the unit is a veteran. So they have 4 health instead of the 2 that a recruit would have. The medic is not engaged or injured, so it's going to take and perform a set of orders. And I might make a judgment call here or there, just depending if there's a better move for it, because it is a solitaire system. It's not going to be able to account for everything in the game. All right, we got an 8. An 8 says objective, use scenario instructions. Well, our objective is to kill and to gather scavenging tokens. So we're going to move him towards a scavenging token. Our medic has a movement of 5. Let's see. What's the best way? Because he kind of wants to stay near his guys, but out of the way of the combat so he can kind of help out. I don't know. Where are we going to go with him? Might send him around over this way. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, we'll send him up here. All right. Sending him for that scavenging token, seeing if he can get up there, over there to it. All right. Next token, and you guys see this is how the game goes. It'll go a little quicker if you're playing a human opponent because you don't have to take and move all the chips yourself. And see there, Grenadier is going. We'll take and look at our Grenadier. He is also not engaged or injured, so he's definitely going to be moving up. The Grenadier is over here. Actually, he's the one that is next to the medic. Right there is his token. He has a rocket launcher to use and a movement of 4. So let's roll our D6 and see what he's going to do. 5. All right, Grenadier on a 5 is going to scavenge. So he's going to do the same thing. Move to the closest unclaimed token and pick it up. Let's see, with a movement of 4, he's not going to be able to take and move to it. I might move him on top of that terrain, though. He goes 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, it does cost 2 movement points to go up or down on terrain. So I put him up on that elevated terrain so he can kind of see out what's going on. He is moving towards the scavenging token, but nowhere near close enough to get it just yet. But that way he does have line of sight to all this open terrain that my big mechs are going to start moving through here soon. Something neat I wanted to show you guys real quick. For the rocket launcher, there's actually a whole blurb on how you're going to do this, but it has the ability to miss, okay? So this is the template for it, and it has the chance to, walk away just depending on what you roll on the D6. So you would take and place your template down, and you would roll a D10, and it would determine what direction the template is going to go in or possibly stay the same. And you place the template within the Grenadier's weapon range, all right? So its weapon range doesn't have to be to the center of the template. It can be to one of the edges of the template. That way you can kind of reach out and touch someone. But there is a set of rules for the rocket launcher. We'll get into that a little more specifically here in a minute. But the basic gist is you can't take and hit everything under the sun. Say you take and fire at an enemy that's on top of elevated terrain, and that's where the grenade or the rocket launcher hits. It's only going to hit units on that level of elevation. It's not going to hit units that could be underneath the template, but down beneath it, as far as the map is concerned. All right, so the video is running along, but I want to take and draw a few more counters and show you guys a few more moves before we'll take and break and we'll pick back up with part 2. My next one, is my big mech, my Hellfire. Again, this goes to my discard. I don't have access to it again on the next turn, but it doesn't matter because I still have 2 counters for each of my different units for the next turn to draw anyway. My Hellfire only has a move of 3. Has a weapon range of 9. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Ooh, if I move up, I can have a range on the medic almost like exactly. So if we go 1, 2, 3, bam. I should be able to fire from here onto the medic onto the following turn. So we'll probably put him there and have him just gun down any enemy opponents that take and get in our range. All right, next counter is going to be my Vanguard. Okay, Vanguard's going, the commander's going to go last, which isn't going to help me too much. Okay, the Vanguard has a movement of 4. You can see his stats. He has a movement of 4, but he has a weapon range of 7 and attack of 3. So he's one of my better units on the board. Where do we want to go with him? If I go 1, 2, 3, or I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. I might try to move him up towards this scavenge token and difficult terrain, because you do get a defensive bonus in difficult terrain. So if I can get him in it, that will help. 1, 2, 3, 4. There we go. All my guys are starting in the back, so, and that is how this scenario is set up. The back, my Southern's coming out. The back 2 squares on each side is the deployment zone for all the different units. And my last guy, my commander. So that's my last token. I know the rest of them are going to be the enemies. My commander also has a range of 4, so we're just going to move him up behind this elevated terrain for cover. So 1, 2, 3, we'll just put him right there. Because again, this is elevated terrain, so the enemy couldn't see me through it. You're going to draw a line from the center of the square to the center of whatever you're targeting, and if it passes through any of the other types of terrain or models, it can take and obstruct the shot. So let's take and finish out real quick the remainder of the enemy's turn, and then we'll take and probably pause the video for now. What do we have? 3 tokens left. First one is Sniper. The Sniper has the stealth ability. Yeah, the Sniper receives +2 defense against ranged combat attacks when in difficult terrain, the orange terrain, instead of the typical +1. And that's a passive, so he'll get that anytime he's in orange terrain. It'd be a good idea to keep him in that. And since he's way back there in the center, I'm not even going to bother to roll for it. I'm going to move him up because I know he's moving up. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. We'll go what? Keep him in there. That way he's in difficult terrain and is covered. I mean, my guys aren't that close. Well, maybe I should move him up closer. Get him to the end. 2, 3, 4. Yeah. We'll have him go there. And he can get into this end bit of difficult terrain and put some fire down onto the guys. Kind of like how my Hellfire is doing down over here, covering them from longer range. Their Sniper can do the same thing. All right, we've only got a couple of tokens left. So, let's see what we got. Draw them out. Grenadier and Rebel Leader. All right. Grenadier is over there. That is one that's getting activated twice. So you see now how it works with a unit being able to activate more than once depending on what tokens are put in the bag. All right, he got a 7 on his orders, which means he's going to assault move to the closest enemy until within weapon range, ignoring line of sight, and will not affect allies. So he's gonna try not to hit his own buddies with his rocket launcher. So he's gonna rocket launcher. All right, his movement. Again, his movement is a 4, and his weapon range is a 7. So he could get to where he could fire on these guys, but he would move out into the open. It says to move him out there, so we'll try to move him over towards this cover. Let's see, this guy is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. He would have to get to here to get it. So 1, 2, 3, 4. That would be firing through difficult terrain. Or he could fire down there. Yeah, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, so he's going to move there. That's going to be his activation, and he will take an attempt to fire on these guys next time. Okay, David, I know you're watching this, so help me out here just in case I'm doing this wrong. But with the assault kind of sounds like it moves, the AI would move and attack in the same turn. But in the rulebook, it says very specifically that they take and perform one action. So you can move, combat, or close combat or range combat, or your action or your special abilities, but you can't do more than one thing when your activation token is drawn. So I'm playing it the same way for both sides. They do one thing. They can either move, or they can attack, or they can do whatever, but not doing 2 things with them. I think I'm doing that right, but let me know if I'm wrong on that. You guys stay tuned in case I am wrong on how that is being performed, but I think I'm on point for this, but David will let me know down in the comments if I'm not. And the last token again was the Rebel Leader, who we haven't activated, down over here. You guys can see his counter. And I do believe he has a movement of 4, so we'll probably just be moving him up to get him close to the action. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, we'll bring him up to there. That way he's in cover as well. So now you guys see we completed our first round, all the units that were drawn, and for us it just so happened that I ended up getting 1 each of all the enemy units. It could have been anything. I could not have, or I could have got more of the medic or more of the grenadier, or whatever, since that's going to activate randomly. Mine, I obviously get to choose, but I wanted to get all my guys a little closer so they could start to do something. But I'm thinking next time I might take and put more of the Hellfire, might put 2 of his and 2 of the Vanguard, because the Inferno and the Commander are kind of safely tucked where they're at. But these guys are getting ready to take damage. And if I could move my Vanguard up into this difficult terrain to give them a little extra defense and then take out that Grenadier, same thing with the Hellfire. He has range now on these guys since he has such a long range. He might actually be able to take and get some of these guys plinked off before they can hit him with a rocket. I do have to say, I think this game could be played with miniatures if you wanted to. If you want to have the miniatures, low mechs and cyborgs and stuff like that, just place them on top of the counter so you can keep track of whether it's wounded or not, flipping the counters over respectively. But you could have the miniatures on the board and they would work just fine. The squares look like they are big enough to fit the 28 millimeter size miniatures. So if you have extra miniatures from different games, you could easily incorporate them into this game without any problems. All right, but that's going to be it for this one. You guys stay tuned. I will be picking the game back up and showing you when we really engage in combat here on the next turn. All right, that's it for me. You guys take care. I'll catch you in the next one.